Good afternoon. How are we all today? I'm having to be careful of where I position because it seems to be some form of shadow. So today I am talking about knowing your numbers and the importance. So yesterday I did a poll because I'm intrigued to know how many of you are actually aware of your numbers. And when I'm talking about that in your business, I'm talking about do you know what your turnover is? Do you know what your break-even point is? Do you know your profit margins? Do you know how much is owed to your suppliers? Do you know how much is owed to your customers? And even if you don't know this literally off the top of your head, can you easily access that information? And are you checking that information on a regular basis? Or are you one of these people who relies on their accountant to give their end of year accounts figure, and that's all you're literally aware of? Now, I'm not saying the end of year number doesn't matter, because it well and truly does, because you want to see how you've done over the last year and be able to compare it against previous years. But that doesn't mean that that should be the only number that you are concentrating on. You need to be consistently checking this information. I would say at least monthly, if not on a weekly basis. And it's also important to actually have a budget. So you plan for your next financial year and see whether you are actually on target. So I often talk about goal setting, and I did last month when I was talking on the business planning side. But you need to be able to put what you intend to generate turnover wise each month into your budget, and actually be able to then monitor to see whether you are hitting that target or not. And if not, why not? And if you're not checking that, you'll get to the end of the year, and to be perfectly honest, you are probably unlikely to have hit your actual target that you have set yourself, because ultimately you haven't actually been monitoring those numbers. And I tend to find that it's kind of like having a mini competition with yourself. So you're always then checking, am I on target? Am I actually hitting that numbers? And then you can actually then incentivize your staff to help you hit those targets. And I think there is always a real sense of rapid business growth when you have those targets actually set and you're monitoring them. Okay, so why else is it important to be able to know your numbers? Now, I've just literally said to you about financial clarity. The next thing is in being able to make informed decisions. So if you're armed with data, you can then make an informed decision. For example, are you wanting to expand your team? Are you wanting to buy new equipment, invest in technology? Now, if you don't know what your numbers are, you don't then know whether you are in a financial position to afford to be able to move forward in that growth. And I made the mistake when I ran the law firm, where I didn't really have a detailed enough grasp of my numbers, but I would still then make those risky decisions, and I'd take on new staff, I would invest in new software, and I ended up actually putting the business into a huge amount of debt, because I didn't actually have the numbers to be able to back up those decisions. And I'm therefore putting the business at risk. Whereas now, I'm much more mindful of what the numbers are. I've still taken a few risks in terms of, with certain things, but I'm certainly much more risk adverse than what I have ever been, because I want to be able to know that I can afford to do whatever the next thing is. And I'll give you a prime example where previously I would have made a completely different decision. I'll give you two examples actually. The first is in relation to, there's a business show, I think in November, and I've been approached by the show to potentially exhibit. And it's not a cheap show to exhibit at. And I looked at the financial commitment that it would be and thought to myself, is the business going to be in a position where I could make this commitment? And I took the decision of actually, no, it won't be. Or if it is, there are other things that I think would be a better investment, and there are other things that I would rather sort out first. So I then took the decision of, no, I'm not going to proceed with it. Whereas in previous years, I would have pretty much said yes to everything and I just would go for it. Then the other part is in terms of things like business coaching. So I have, again, in the past, where I have been approached to work with other business coaches, and this is more when I was in the law firm, where people were trying to support me, trying to help me. And I had a number of situations where I would say yes, and I would scrap the money together and I would make that investment. And in reality, I didn't make the most of the investment for whatever reason. Whereas now I've had various conversations, for example, working with the likes of Tony Robbins' coaching team, not him personally, I wish, and the financial commitment that was required to work with him, I just wasn't in a position. There's a number of other coaches where I have again been approached, and there's quite a significant financial investment. And it wasn't the fact that I couldn't see the value in what they were offering, but I really could. But I knew that the business was not in a financial position at that moment in time to be able to make that commitment. So therefore, I have politely declined. And I do think, I am very much of the mindset of, if you genuinely believe it's the right thing for you, then you'll find the money somehow. But on these occasions, I've not felt that the timing was right. And as a result, I've made that decision of no, not at this moment in time. So it can give you an opportunity to be able to make informed decisions. The third thing is it gives you also, by knowing your numbers, it gives you early warning signs. So I mentioned earlier about having a budget. Well, for example, if you know that your corporation tax bill is due, your VAT is due, and you have got a handle on your numbers and you know what the amount that's likely to be payable to the likes of the VAT, corporation tax, etc. If you aren't keeping an eye on your numbers, and you then have, you've forgotten that your VAT bill is due. Well, in those incidences, if you've not planned for it because you're not keeping on top of those numbers, you're then going to get yourself into difficulty. And when I'm talking about early warnings, it's also the fact that, okay, you know that you've got other bills that you've got to pay and there isn't enough cash flow to be able to do it. If you're tracking your numbers and knowing what is going on in your financials, you'll be able to then actually take quick action and do something about it. Whereas if you leave it until the point in which that money is due and you're like, oh, now what am I going to do? You're going to find yourself in more and more difficulty. And that's where a lot of businesses then get into huge financial difficulties. So, having those early warning signs by keeping on top of those numbers is absolutely crucial. Then you've got things like your growth opportunity. So if you are keeping a track and you're seeing that, oh, wow, my numbers have gone up. Like, for example, my business in the last 12 months, I've had 141% growth. I am absolutely ecstatic in terms of where my growth has been, because I've literally started this business completely from scratch. I made a loss in my first year. I made a small profit in my second year, and I have made a significant profit in this financial year. If you compare it to what I was, a year ago, I've made, and I have grown, but I have been able to keep an eye on that because I'm looking at things like my profit and loss. I have got an indication of the fact that I knew before my accountant had done my my finances already for the end of this financial year. I can actually look at that and think, oh my goodness, I have actually grown this business, which then means that if you've got an opportunity to be able to invest in something, you know that you can actually do it and you can then plan for your next financial year. So you're seeing the actual growth and you can then celebrate those wins. And I think it's so, so important to celebrate that. Then the final thing is financial confidence. You know where you are with your business. You know where you stand. If you're in a situation where, you want to go on holiday, or do something with your family, you know that your business can then actually financially support that. You can take that money out of the business and know that the business will be absolutely fine with you doing that, and it will continue to flourish. And it means then you actually can start living the life that you want. You can have that freedom, and imagine that feeling, right? And if you are keeping on top of those numbers, and you are making sure that you are profitable and you're hitting those targets, and you're smashing those targets, the life in which you can give yourself and the rewards that you can give yourself are just absolutely out of this world. So why shouldn't you keep a track of your numbers? There is only benefits to getting on top of your numbers. So if you want any help in terms of getting on top of your numbers, because I do appreciate that this is one of the things that I see so many business owners really struggling with. And I'm obviously not a qualified accountant. I don't hold myself out to be, but the one thing I do is I teach you how to use Xero. I can help you get your Xero up to date. I can help you convert from, for example, if you want to move over from one accounting software to Xero, I can help you with all of those things. And I've got one of my clients who, it's a returning client, coming back to me, and I'm helping him get his accounts completely back up to date. And we can then start working with an accountant. But if you feel like your accounts are in a mess and you're terrified to have a conversation with your accountant, you might not even have an accountant, but you know that you need to get a grasp of your numbers, then the key thing is, all I just need you to do is put in the comments numbers, and I will then get in contact with you, or you can send me a DM and we can have a conversation. We can potentially get you in for a free strategy session. And of course, the other thing to bear in mind is you'll hear more about knowing your numbers from Innovate Accountancy, Zoe, who is doing the talk at the Business Fixer Summit on the 13th of September. So if you want some more hints and tips on getting to grips with your numbers, then make sure you book your place there. But the key thing is get on top of your numbers, know where you are, set your goals, keep track of them. And I tell you what, it will make 100% difference to not only the functioning and efficiency of your business, it will make your life easier in the long run. You can actually start living your life and keeping your family happy by taking them on holiday. So I hope you found today's session of value, and I look forward to seeing any comments you've got, or please do share any perspectives that you have in the comments, and I shall see you all very soon.